Welcome back to another episode of Smooth Operator Trucking, where we create the dream 1 mile at a time. Today, we're going to be talking about doing dedicated freight during peak season at Mercer Transportation, and we're getting started right now. Every year during peak season, somewhere right around November, December, a lot of LTL trucking companies need some help moving freight because there's just so much move that they can't handle all of it on their own. So they start outsourcing to outsource outside contractors. So Mercer happens to be one of those contractors that gets some LTL freight during peak season. PS, FedEx are the main ones from my understanding. Getting on dedicated freight during peak season can be a challenge sometimes because there's a lot of guys who are here who have seniority, and so when they start making phone calls to try to get their drivers for peak season, they already have guys in mind. Now, you might get lucky, maybe the guy left or he decided to do something else, or he's not going to do anything during peak season this year, but most of the time those guys stay in those spots, especially the ones that actually pay pretty decent and are in decent locations. Today is December 4th, and right now I am on a dedicated freight lane for FedEx Ground. I started on the 2nd and it goes all the way to the 20th. It actually pays decent, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later. But first I want to talk about how important it is to build relationships so that you can get on something like this. Now, I kind of got lucky with this one. I put my name in the hat earlier this year, but of course, like I said, they're going to go to their go-to guys first. This particular agency and how I ended up with this run, about a month ago or so, maybe a little less, I did a load for this particular agency down to Miami, Florida. It was multiple drops, cabinets, and I mean, there were several drops on it, and a lot of stuff was loaded out of sequence. So at one of the stops, I actually had to find the box that was loaded out of sequence, take it down the street to another LTL company and have them ship it back to where it was supposed to go. So the company appreciated, or the agency appreciated, you know, how I did that and everything, and I actually got some extra pay out of it. Once I put two and two together and realized that it was actually an agency that I had talked to before, and they get freight lanes during peak season, you know, I talked to them. I said, hey, you know, is there any way I can get on one of those freight lanes this year? And the guy was like, you know, we have a lot of people ahead of you, but you know, we really do like the way that you handled this load, you know, so we're definitely going to give you some consideration. I was like, okay, cool. Honestly, I didn't think I would hear anything else back about it. The next day, the agent calls me up and say, hey, are you still interested in a freight lane? And I was like, absolutely. So he named off a few, and one of them didn't quite work for me because I was going to be, you know, wasn't going to be available. And he came up with this one starting November 2nd, starting December 2nd, going until December 20th. Perfect. So the location isn't that great, you know, and that's probably one of the reasons why it was available. This lane is from Middleton, Connecticut to Lewiston, Maine, and back every night. Leaves out about 11 o'clock at night. If you're hustling, you can probably get back by 9 o'clock in the morning. One of the things I like about this run is that there's no deadhead. So, you know, I come back to the yard, I go to drop off the trailers at the other place, and I come right back. So that's one of the things I really like about this run. There's no deadhead. I mean, are there better paying loads out there? Absolutely, but not having a deadhead really counts for a lot. The miles are actually pretty accurate also. For this particular run, I'm getting paid for 488 miles, 244 miles there, 244 miles back. So the miles are actually fairly accurate. When I was clocking it, it's about 10 miles over, and which is actually kind of unusual because so I have a background at FedEx Ground. I used to run for a contractor at FedEx Ground, so I'm very familiar with the system here at FedEx Ground. And normally, if it says it's X and many miles to the terminal from A to B, it's normally with that within a mile or two. So it's interesting to me that there's 10 miles getting lost somewhere there, and then going back, so really 20 miles. So I'm getting paid for 488 miles. I'm actually probably doing 508 miles, which still isn't that bad, but you know, I was kind of surprised. It's a pretty easy run. For this run, you do have to have doubles. The first night I got here, I did just pull a regular 53-foot van trailer, but when I got there, I actually had to get doubles, empties, and bring them back. So that's normally how it works. You'll take loaded out, and then you'll bring empties back, or vice versa, just depending on the station. Which brings back another thing, like, very important to try to get as many endorsements as you can. I have hazmat, I have tankers, and I have doubles. I still need to get my TWIC. The fact that I had experience as a FedEx Ground driver helped out a lot also. I mean, it's been a while since I've, you know, ran doubles, but it comes right back to you pretty fast. And doubles are pretty easy, but you do want to know what you're doing. There's a lot of guys who go and get doubles qualified, you know, but really don't know what they're doing, and you can really mess up some things if you're not careful and try to get some kind of experience. Or the ironic thing about that is that this truck is actually an old FedEx Ground truck. I actually got this truck from a contractor, the contractor that I was working for down in Florida. He actually gifted it to me for staying with him. He was going to sell it to me for $5,000, and he asked me to stay with him through peak season 1 year, and I did, and so he gifted it to me, did an overhaul on it and everything else. I made some videos about that in the past. But yeah, so this truck is set up for FedEx Ground. It's got the pintle hook so that you can pull the dolly around, place to put a chain, and I mean, yeah, just good to go. And it was funny because it's been such a long time since I used the pintle hook. I had to use the hammer to kind of knock it loose, but now it's doing what it's supposed to do. So my very first night, I pulled a 53-footer going up to Maine. When I got there, they wanted me to bring doubles back. No problem. Whenever you are hauling doubles, at least here at FedEx Ground, when you're doing one of the drop trailers, I don't know if you have to do it for the belly ones or other LTO trailers, but with these drop belly trailers, you have to set your fifth wheel all the way back to the rear, especially if you're running tandems. You know, you're not running a single axle, which most people aren't. So you have to put your fifth wheel all the way to the rear. So you obviously went to go hook up to a trailer to try to move the fifth wheel, and it just was not budging at all. Finally got it pulled all the way, some kind of way, went all the way to the front, but it wouldn't go to the back. And then the air cylinder hose broke off, and then at that point, obviously, it was no longer going to work. So it took me a while to kind of figure that out, but I had to manually pull the air cylinder handle, and then I had to use a hammer to wedge it in between the cylinder and that handle, so that way it would stay in place while hooked up to a trailer and pull the fifth wheel back manually. So got that done. So that took a while. Plus it was really cold outside. And so what I do is, like, when I get really stressed out, not really stressed out, but I'm like, okay, I'm trying to figure out a solution and it's not coming to me, I'll do what I call a stress nap. You know, I took a 15-minute stress nap and like woke up like boom, and it just came right to me. Went out there, you know, and came up that I did and got back on the road. And then another issue is you have to make sure that you remove your mud flaps. Yeah, absolutely. I've got mud flap hangers, the mud flap hangers on mine, and so mine are pretty easy to remove. Some guys don't have those. I'm not quite sure how they work that, but I mean, if you don't, you risk the chance of messing up your mud flap. So this load is paying $2.25 per mile for 488 miles round trip. That gives me $1,098 a day times 5, puts me somewhere around $54.90 for the week. And so this runs for 3 weeks. So I did find a place in New Hampshire where, with the Mercer discount, so far I've been paying right around $2.87 or $2.88 per gallon for diesel. And so I fill up there every night. And so, yeah, so hopefully, you know, the truck holds up and there's no issues, and hopefully this can be a profitable month. Not quite sure after the 20th what I'll do, but I'll figure something out. My biggest concern is right now it's going to be the snow. It looks like we're supposed to be getting some snow tonight and tomorrow night. So that's probably going to be the biggest factor right there, is what the weather does up here. So hopefully it's not too bad and the weather holds up for the next 3 weeks. So the next 3 weeks went actually pretty smooth. Out of the 15 runs, I completed 14. The last night on my way up to Connecticut, excuse me, on my way up to Maine, one of my oil return line, I guess, to my turbo, over time, it actually, I guess, rubbed a hole in it, and it's aluminum, so it must have been hitting against something on the side. So I broke down that night, and I had to get the load recovered, and I had to get that repair done. But outside of that, it was actually a pretty good run, and I enjoyed it, and it was very profitable. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to hit that like and consider subscribing. And as always, not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. Hard times don't last, hard truckers do. And last but not least, stay smooth, my friends.